Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Theravada Buddhism series, Dhamma talk number 27. Types of consciousness by nature. We have discussed types of consciousness by planes of existence in the last talk. In this one we will discuss the classification of consciousness by nature. In the book it says by genus, Genus. By nature, consciousness is divided into 4 divisions: kusala, akusala, vipāka, and kiriya citta. Kusala, akusala, vipāka, and kiriya citta. We'll go these one by one and explain what it means. What is kusala? Kusala. What is kusala? It is translated as moral, also as skillful, and also as wholesome. 3 different renditions in English. The word moral cannot be standardized, as there are many standards of morals based on race, color, religion, tradition, and culture. So it gives a ambiguous meaning. Here, the word skillful means having skill in not doing evil. However, skillful, the word skillful, can be perceived as a skill in doing good as well as evil. But in here it's supposed to be the ability to not to do evil. So for people unfamiliar with the word kusala, skillful can be perceived in both ways, good as well as evil. The third word, wholesome. It indicates that consciousness is associated with wholesome or beautiful mental factors. Wholesome consciousness is faultless and blameless and produce a beneficial result. However, a consciousness that is faultless but does not produce a beneficial result is not a wholesome consciousness, kusala citta. My teacher said the most appropriate translation for kusala in English is wholesome. Wholesome consciousness arises from the 3 roots of goodness: non-greed, non-ill will or anger, and non-delusion. Such consciousness are associated with loving kindness, compassion, not wanting, letting go, and insight into the true nature of mind and matter, nama rupa. There are 21 or 37 wholesome consciousness. The difference in number is due to counting the supermundane as the 4 or 20. We will go through these two sets of number which are different for the same category in future talks when we deal specifically with these. At this moment, just remember there are 21 wholesome consciousness or 37 wholesome consciousness. The next one is, what is akusala? It is translated as immoral, unskillful, or unwholesome. It arises from the three roots of evil, which are greed, anger or ill will, and delusion. And these three are also known as kiriya, mental defilements. Mental defilements arises out of self-interest and ego. Whenever one does something putting self-interest ahead of others, the following actions will step on others to a greater or lesser degree. Although it might be profitable for yourself, it won't be beneficial for others, and it is full of faults and blamable nature. It associates with unwholesome mental factors. Akusala is defined as activities associated with three mental defilements: faulty and blamable, and does not produce beneficial result. If you see these characters, that is the characters of akusala jāti, unwholesome consciousness. Try to reflect the best of your ability on your deed, speech and thought in your everyday life. If there is greed, if there is anger, or if there is delusion in these actions, they are unwholesome consciousness. Streamline yourself so that the frequency of arising of such unwholesome consciousness become less and less. Daily activities, observation, the best as you can. Let's see. When you're eating a meal, what kind of consciousness is there? When you are eating a meal, what kind of consciousness is there? Let's see, while you're eating, you think or you say something like, "Oh, this is delicious, fantastic, give me more, I want it more," whether in terms of thoughts or speech. If you say like that, if you think like that, there is greed in that action. Of course, that greed is not detrimental to others. Nevertheless, it is still unwholesome, akusala. It is still akusala. But karma is not weighty or serious. That unwholesome karma is not weighty or serious. And the consequences are negligible, most likely for the continuation of existence. Abhidharma discerns wholesome from unwholesome with precision. The key word is precision. It doesn't give any room for wrong interpretation or wrong perception. Otherwise, there are many cases that we perceived, or what we perceived as wholesome is unwholesome. For yogis who are heading towards liberation, knowing right from wrong, good from evil is vital, it's very important. If you remember, in a summarized form of, very short summarized form of Buddhism is avoid evil, do good, keep your mind pure. To avoid evil and to do good, one must know what is good and what is evil, what is right and what is wrong, with precision. That's why it is very important to know exactly what is right and what is wrong. And Abhidharma will teach you that. There are 12 unwholesome consciousness, akusala citta. And the next one is vipāka, vipāka. What is vipāka? It is translated as resultant. Wholesome actions produce desirable results, and unwholesome actions produce undesirable result. These good or bad results are called vipāka. These good or bad results are called resultants, vipāka. The actions of wholesome consciousness and unwholesome consciousness are karma. The actions are karma, and the result or the effects is vipāka, resultant. Or you can say it complete, resultant consciousness. Resultant consciousness. They are one and the same. Vipāka citta. All the pleasant and unpleasant objects we came across, we encounter in this life are wholesome and unwholesome resultant consciousness. All pleasant and unpleasant objects, conditions, situations that we encounter in this life are wholesome consciousness and unwholesome resultant consciousness. Wholesome resultant consciousness and unwholesome resultant consciousness. Result of the past life karma. Vipāka, resultant, has passive quality. It cannot produce new karma by itself. They just arise and disappear. That's it. They cannot produce new karma. Only a reaction to that situation creates a new karma. These resultant consciousness arises and simply pass away without producing new karma. There are 36 or 52 resultant consciousness. 36 or 52 resultant consciousness. The different sets of number will be explained later. Why? The fourth and the last one is kiriya. What is kiriya? K-R-I-Y-A. Kiriya or kiriya citta. One and the same. It is translated as functional. Kiriya, functional. Actions. What are actions? Actions in deed, action and speech, action and thoughts. Actions of functional consciousness do not produce new karma. That's a key point. These functional consciousness have actions. It's actions by itself. But they do not produce new karma. They arise and do their functions, do their job, and disappear without leaving any residue, without leaving any trace of new karma. There are 20 kiriya or functional consciousness. Out of 20, 18 kinds of functional consciousness arises only in Buddhas Vichika Buddhas, the silent Buddha, and arahants. We will explain about these in details, why 20, why 18, and so on later. And this is the introduction of the classifications of consciousness by nature, genus. And these natures are what? Akusala, unwholesome; kusala, wholesome; vipāka, resultant; and kiriya, functional consciousness. Altogether there are 89 or 121 consciousness. In the following talks, we will discuss these groups separately. May all of you be able to understand what the mind, consciousness, jāti is, without any ambiguity and delusion or illusion, as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.